Rodgers against one of their opponents last season, he went over to the defensive huddle. He didn't get in it, but he went over to the defensive huddle and said, "Get me out of here!" Like, I don't know what. I mean, you could assume that it obviously means he's not happy. I don't know how you could feel like that and then be the MVP. This guy's, as Mark Murphy, the president of the Packers, said. I don't know. I guess he said it in an interview. He's a complicated fellow.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy is different.
We are your Birds 365 guys, McMullen and McDonald. We've got a good couple of minutes to invest with our next guest. And it's good that we have these minutes because he's going to tell us something that we probably didn't know before. He's one of the best NFL inside information guys that there is. He does it for Sirius XM, and he's Inside the Birds podcast. His co-host, Adam Caplan, jumps aboard Birds 365. How's your down season going, Adam?
Jody, good to talk to you. Yeah, down season. Yeah, I wish I had one. Yeah, that's I cover 32 teams, not just one. So I'm constantly trying to get information, and it's been interesting because the coaches have been around the NFL and executives have been on vacation, and you could always do contracts. Some teams are going to do extensions before camp start. 29 teams report by the 27th. There'll be some extensions done. We had one last week. Ryan Ramchick got one with the Saints, and we'll have more done over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to get information, playing a little golf, playing a little tennis. Just was at Ron Jaworski's golf deal at the Trop a couple of weeks ago at the pool. It's good to see Jaws and Jason Jones, and so some current Eagles, some ex-Eagles. Doug Peterson, by the way, was there. Saw him for a second, but just trying to get ready for training camp and stay in shape. That's the other thing I'm trying to do.
Adam, good to see you. One of those potential contract extensions locally could be Dallas Goedert. Dallas confirmed that he was in negotiations for a potential extension. We all know the Zach Ertz situation. Most people don't expect him to be here, whether that's July 27th or it goes into August. Ultimately, from the Eagles' perspective, how desirous would it be to get something done early? Because if this guy bets on himself, Adam, he could be up there with the highest paid tight ends in football.
Yeah, John, I wouldn't. What you just said, the latter part, I would not rule that out. I'm not saying he doesn't want a deal and the Eagles don't want to do an extension. They'd like to. But he is so gifted. And we had said on Inside the Birds a couple months ago, after the draft, if Ertz was not traded at that point, we said whether Ertz is on the roster or not, this is going to be Dallas Goedert's breakout season if he could play around a minimum of 15 games. But remember, we have a 17-game season. Yeah. I have to keep reminding myself of that. I keep screwing that up, but it is weird. They just think the world of him. We also were told that this coaching staff absolutely loves this player. I'm guessing some of them from scouting or seeing coaching tape from leading up to the 18 draft. A lot of this offense staff was familiar with him, particularly Steichen, the OC, coming over from the Chargers, Sirianni coming over from the Colts, Kevin Patullo, Sirianni's right-hand man, and others. They were really familiar with him. And he's just one of those rare three-down tight ends that doesn't just block. He does everything well. The one thing, though, he struggles with is staying healthy. We know that. I don't see him getting a deal done unless he gets a market deal, from what I understand. When I say market, I'm not saying he's getting George Kittle's deal. Nobody's getting that deal. That is an historic deal at over $15 million per season, which was a great deal by Jack Becta. Philadelphia's Jack Becta, by the way, who represented Jermaine Mayberry. You might remember him, former Eagles first-round pick. But I think he's going to have to get, for him to get a deal done, he's going to have to do better than Austin Hooper, who got $10.5 million. It won't be easy to do his deal because, A, he's got time left. He's on the final year, so he's got 1 year left. And B, from the Eagles' standpoint, if they look at it and say, okay, we love this player. He's been a great second-round pick to a certain extent, but he does have an injury history. So how do you balance that? But from Goddard's standpoint, getting a market deal, as you said, John, and just waiting and betting on himself.
Howie Roseman has shown over the years he likes to do that. He's willing to take that risk. Anytime you do any contract with anybody, there's risk on both sides. The player could undersell himself. The team could overpay if they have a higher estimate that he's going to turn around and produce. It's a risk reward on both parties' sides. Howie has shown the desire to do it and potentially win it ahead of time and be aggressive in doing so. You gave us the breakout on Goddard. Is there another guy on this team that could fall into that category if it is something that, and it has, in my opinion, that Howie showed he likes to do? Is there another guy that maybe is flying under the radar that they could have a good, quick negotiation with and get a future commitment out of?
Yeah, a couple. Jordan Mailata, I wouldn't roll that out by the start of the regular season. He's not, wouldn't be the priority yet that Goddard is. Because Goddard is the future. There's no question he's the guy at tight end. He was drafted to be that guy. He's still that guy as we kind of progress towards the season here in training camp. Now, I say that you have to be careful with Mailata because he is competing against Dillard. We've felt for a long time that Mailata is the landslide favorite, but he hasn't won it yet. They haven't had the real competition. It cannot start till training camp because you can't do anything physical until training camp. So we'll see. And Andre Dillard, look, he's put on the weight. He looks good. I know we don't want to overrate what players say in press conferences, but he certainly seems to say the right things. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So, overall, that's going to be a competition that's going to be very, very interesting.
Adam, I want to talk to you about Steven Nelson. We got to go down that road. He and Darius Slay had a little bit of a Twitter back and forth, not much, but Darius said that, Steven would look good and green, and Steven came back. It would all be so simple, my man. What are we talking about? 2 million versus 4 million? What is it for the Eagles to get this deal done? Because they have one thing nobody else can offer them, and that's opportunity. He can go and be a significant part of many other teams. Everybody's looking for corners. We all know that. But the Eagles can say, look, if you don't fall on your face, you're going to be the starting corner opposite Darius Slay. And that's an opportunity to make more money on the free agent market next year.
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways to look at it. The Eagles, they don't need to do a 1 year deal with him. They could do a 1 year deal or 2 year deal with a 1 year structure, just depending on how they want to structure it. He's only 28 years old. It's a little bit younger than I thought. The guy started games for the Chiefs and Steelers. The issue that, just checking into it, I've checked in with a bunch of teams on what their opinion of this. I know I talked to a couple teams I know are in on it. Their belief is they know he won't get it, but he'd like to get as close as he could to the $8.25 million salary, which he would have made with the Steelers. Yeah, he's not going to make that, obviously. Where I think it'll end, John, wherever he signs, whether it's with the Eagles or another team, I think it'll be the cash equivalent will be $4 to $5 million. I think it'll be somewhere in that range. The Eagles don't want to pay quite that much, as we first reported on Inside the Birds, 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's been a quiet situation with Nelson. He clearly wants a certain amount of money. Teams aren't willing to pay it, but you made a great point here. There aren't a lot of situations where he can come in. There's no competition for the starting job. If he comes in here, he's starting. There's no competition. The Eagles can say what they want. Zach McPherson is not starting over Steven Nelson if he comes here. Now, there are other teams, as I understand it, where he would go in and probably start, where he might have to compete for the starting job. Now, money also would be a factor in that if he gets $4 to $5 million somewhere else, he probably would go in as a prohibitive starter. Someone have to take the job away from him. Guy's a good football player, very competitive, smart. Oh, we'll give you a little nugget. We just completed our training camp series, our preview series on Inside the Birds with Greg Cosell from NFL Films. We're going to drop the Eagles tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. Greg does a Steven Nelson review. You must hear this. Greg's the best. Jody, I know you've had him on your show years ago.
Sure.
I heard you guys together. Greg does it better than anyone else who doesn't work for an NFL team, and he gets some great intel on Steven Nelson's skill set, how he plays, and how he would potentially fit in with Eagles. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. All right, speaking of fitting in with the Eagles, we're not sure how anybody fits in yet because it's a whole new coaching staff, head coach, all the way through. The entire coaching staff has been changed. What you guys have had is when your minimal chances to meet with them and get to ask them questions, you can formulate opinions as to what type of system they're going to run. But until we actually see it on the field, that's all that it is speculation. But people will, if they're free agents and they're out there and they're talking, there'll be rumors, there'll be some innuendo as to what the Eagles are going to do. is there any buzz around the league about the new Eagle coaching staff? Now, they're not the only one. If you want to tell us about any other new coaching staff in the National Football League, is anybody garnering intention around the league without having actually shown anything on film yet about, hey, this new team, this new coaching staff has actually got a chance to hit the ground running in this town?
All right, Johnny, let's start first with scheme, then we'll get into what the reputations are of the coaches. So we had reported back in February on our show that they're going to run some sort of a West Coast offense, whether it's terminology or just structure. This is going to be a old school run after the catch offense where timing and accuracy is going to be absolutely huge. Not that accuracy isn't important for a quarterback. Obviously it is. It's pretty much the number one trait, but especially so in a timing-based offense. This is not a throw it down the field 20 times a game off. That's not what this is. This is run after the catch. So I think Jeff Mosher, my broadcast partner on Inside the Birds, had said that what he had heard added to what I'd reported. He said that he also heard that option routes are going to be heavy in this offense. And that puts a burden on the quarterback and the receivers and the timing and understanding that unspoken language of, okay, against this coverage, I know I have to be here. And Jalen Hurts will be the Eagles starter this season at quarterback. He knows against that coverage, okay, 1-2 hitch out, and the receiver's got to be there. So you can't expect this as to happen overnight. It's going to take time. One of the things I really look forward to at training camp is seeing the chemistry, Jody, from Hurts with these receivers. And by the way, they're very, very young, other than Greg Ward. The Eagles are only one of 2 NFL teams not to have a vested veteran receiver on the roster, which is almost unheard of. Which is not a bad thing, though, for this team because they need to get younger. But other than Greg Ward, they don't have anyone who's really done it before. So this is going to take time for this passing game.
Hey, Adam, you mentioned something, and I'm glad you did it because I talked about this after getting an opportunity to talk with Kevin Patullo in that he's Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. I don't know if people realize this. He's Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. So I've been asking a lot of people, I'm going to run this by you. You think about the template of the NFL with these young coaches. When Sean McVay came in, it was Wade Phillips. And Doug Peterson's not that young, but he had Jim Schwartz. Matt Nagy had Vic Fangio. Even last year, Joe Judge had Jason Garrett. We're talking about Nick Sirianni and the passionate Philadelphia fan base market. Kevin Patullo is the sounding board. Does that concern you a little bit that there's no veteran presence on that staff as a whole?
Yeah, it's funny. Right. I know what you're getting at because we had heard that there was a consideration to hire a senior offensive assistant, whether it's Ken Whisenhunt or somebody like that. This is going back 3 or 4 months, but I was told it had been discussed, but nothing was happening. And to this point, nothing's happened. Now, I know the Browns hired Kevin Rodgers. Kevin Stefanski hired his mentor, Kevin Rodgers, in late July last year. So it's not like the Eagles can't add anyone. And you make a fair point. Now, Shane Steichen did a phenomenal job, ironically, taking over for Whisenhunt as a play caller for the Chargers. Did a great job, considering. And look at, they had the offensive rookie of the year at quarterback with Justin Herbert. Quite frankly, I was shocked that that Brandon Staley didn't want him back. He moved away from Pep Hamilton and Steichen, so that surprised me. Now getting to Patullo, I talked to the Jet source who worked with him. Liked him a lot. Liked his background with receivers and quarterbacks. But you sometimes John, this is what you're talking about, John. You like somebody who's a little bit older, who's been through it before, who's been through the stresses of the so-called high leverage situations. You'd like to have that. And you mentioned Jeff Stoutland obviously has been through it all here with Chip Kelly, Doug Peterson. He's the highest of highs and lowest of lows. You like to see that. We'll see. I don't know that it's going to happen. I wouldn't put the odds of it happening that they're bringing somebody in, but Patullo's his guy. When we were breaking down this in February, we had heard that Patullo is very close to the head coach, and he's a guy that they got to know each other with the Colts very closely. Jason Michael's the guy that he knows from the Colts, obviously, and there's a relationship there. But the thing is, and this is what Jody was asking, there's a lot of unknown with this staff. Michael Clay was a surprise choice as coordinator. He's very young. In fact, I think his assistant,
Randy Brown.
Randy Brown's son, Tyler Brown. Tyler Brown's a year older than him. He's actually 30, and Michael Clay is 29. And Michael Clay's a really sharp guy. Jonathan Gannon, now he's a up-and-coming guy, but this is the first time he's calling a defense. See, that's the thing in the National Football League, guys. There's a saying that coaches use: you never know till you get there. And now you like that Jamal Singleton's been in the league. He's been with a lot of teams. You like that. Brian Johnson has been a quarterback's coach. He's been an OC, but at the college level. And Tracy Rocker's been a long time D-line coach, mostly in college football. Denard Wilson's probably one of the better D-backs coaches that nobody knows about. Jets, I could tell you, did not want to lose him. Absolutely did not want to lose him. They thought they were actually going to keep him, I'm told. So the Eagles got maybe a steal there. But you make a fair point. They need to get a little bit more experience, but we'll see how it's handled.
All right, Adam, want to spread the focus out a little bit. As you say, you cover all 32 teams in the National Football League, so I'm going to ask you about one in particular. That would be the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers prominently on display yesterday, playing a little golf. And as a matter of fact, thing worked out for him. Tom Brady loses at golf. He might not lose Super Bowls, but he loses at golf. He's gotten beat twice now. Peyton Manning got the better of Mr. Rodgers.
I'll tell you what, though, real quick, Jody, he had a 390-yard drive, Tom Brady. 390. Wow. 390.
Is that right?
I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I can't believe it. It was 4 feet from the hole, from the pin. It was unbelievable.
Well, what's funny about golf is if I hit a drive 250, I'm actually going to have a parade.
Yes,
I mean, it's it's funny because I was asked in an interview yesterday, who you picking? I said I got to be Brady. How do you bet against the GOAT, the best quarterback of all time? But I didn't. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned this. I didn't even know who won. So they lost, huh? Brady's.
They did get beat. And by the way, if I drive 250, I then put it in park and get out of the car.
Exactly.
That's not even a conversation to be had.
Right.
But Rodgers did win, and he was asked several times on the broadcast about what's going to happen. Couple of weeks, Packers first practice. And he sloughed it off with, well, we'll see. Well, we'll see. Well, and he did it several times because he can, because we do have a couple more weeks before practice, and he doesn't have to tip his hand if he doesn't want to. Are you feeling any differently than you felt a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, Adam? Has there been any indications in your world as to how this is going to play out, Rodgers? Showing up and making nice with the Packers, Rodgers actually staying home and not playing football for however long it's going to be, or the Packers nervously folding and saying, let's trade him, let's get him out of here.
All right, Jody, let me sum this up by this way. I've known since probably October or November last season how unhappy he was. I had an interesting little note about, 2 months ago, right after the ESPN story broke, that Rodgers, against one of their opponents last season, he went over to the defensive huddle. He didn't get in it, but he went over to the defensive huddle and said, "Get me out of here!" Like, I don't know what. I mean, you could assume that it obviously means he's not happy. I don't know how you could feel like that and then be the MVP. This guy's, as Mark Murphy, the president of the Packers, said. I don't know. I guess he said it in an interview. He's a complicated fellow.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy is different. If you want to research his history with his family, it's very different. Without getting into that situation, this guy's a complicated fella. Now, is anything changed? No. If I'm going to take him at his word, now what his word is, what had been reported by ESPN that he still wants out, I believe that's true. Here's the way I see it resolved here. So they report on the 27th. If he is not reported by the second week of August, they know he's not showing up. He's willing to lose millions because the fines now are way more punitive than they were in the previous CBA. I would think they would. I think they'd start listening to trades. And if Denver's not first in line, if they haven't been, notice, by the way, there have been no reports about teams calling. It's been very surprising that nothing's been leaked out. It's almost shocking to me. But it's really one of the most complicated situations because his issue is not with the coaching staff or a player. It's the general manager, who's really good. Brian Gutekunst is really good, but the communication was terrible between the general manager and Rodgers in terms of that they were going to draft a quarterback. It wasn't who they were going to draft, but that they were going to draft a quarterback in the first round. And the ironic thing was, in 2005, the Packers did all they could to trade out. They couldn't, and they just went with the highest player on the board, who happened to be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, with Aaron, Adam, everybody brings up Denver first. If something happens, it's most likely going to be Denver. Washington football team, would they be in that equation?
You know what's funny, John? Yeah. On SiriusXM, I was hosting on NFL Radio a couple weeks ago, and so a caller came in and mentioned two things. Well, actually, two calls. Washington was one, like you were saying. The other one I think is way more of a long shot, but someone brought up New Orleans, right? Now, they've always had a cap issue. Rodgers actually may get a new deal with his new team if he gets traded. But I think Washington, I thought that made a little bit more sense because past this season, they have no idea who their quarterback is. They could say all they want about Taylor Heineke competing for the starting job. He will not be. It's going to be Fitzpatrick. But they don't know who their starter is. Now, the other thing that I think we have to look at, extrapolating the situation, if in the end the Packers decide, you know what, he's not showing up, we're going to move him, then you have to ask yourself this question if you're the new team receiving the player. You have to know how long he's going to play. You can't give up potential 2 first-round picks. I don't know if it'd be 3, but 2 first-round picks and not know the guy's going to be around for 3 years. And he has 3 years left on his deal. You can't go into it knowing he might only play 1 or 2 years. You just can't trade for him.
All right, Adam, this is something you're going to have to cover, and you might not want to, but there's no way around it. The amount of teams that have the amount of vaccinations to take the restrictions off their team. The number's 85%. I know a bunch of teams thought they'd be at 85% when camp opened. Almost all of them were over 50, so they're at least treading in that direction. A couple of guys have been real honest, executives and coaches who said, yes, if we're not at 85% and you're a guy who's competing for a job and you're right there on the verge of making the team, it could be hazardous to your NFL health, not your own individual health, but your NFL health, if you're not ready to be able to give us the freedom to do what we want to do in practices and the like. How big a story is this going to be? Because you have to be very careful the way you choose your words. You, me, and John can say whatever the hell we want because we have no influence on whether a player is or isn't going to make a team. But certainly the person making those decisions for those teams have to pick and choose their words carefully. How big a story is this going to be as camps open up?
It's a story. I'm probably going to do like a 20-point storyline situation. Leading up to training camp, it's my top 10. I'll tell you why. Like, I'll give you an example. Cole Beasley, right? One of the top 3 or 4 slot receivers in the league. He's been very out front on it in social media, particularly on Twitter, about not wanting to get the COVID vaccine. That's his personal choice. You cannot pressure anyone to do this. And in a way, if you look at his Twitter byline, he's almost threatened to retire if he feels like he's being forced to do it. I don't want to put his words out there, but just go to his Twitter byline. You can see it. I'm just summarizing what he said.
Right.
He's a prominent player. This is, and I can tell you, talking to the Bills, they think they're a Super Bowl type team. They're going for it. That's why they signed Emmanuel Sanders. They have one of the top 3 rosters in the National Football League. They cannot get there without this player. He's a terrific football player. He's actually a training camp storyline because what happens is through the COVID protocols, Jody, the NFLPA and NFL have agreed on these protocols. These re-up protocols here are so detrimental. If you're a player that's not going to take the shot, the COVID shot, there's so little you can do around your teammates. They're making it so difficult. I mean, you don't want to say they're pressuring the players to do it, but they're strongly encouraging to do it. And that's the thing here.
Adam, last one from me, and everybody listen to the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan, another friend of the show, Jeff Mosher. Make sure you check out their new show dropping tomorrow at 6 a.m. Adam, the vaccination, you hear whispers. Obviously, everybody's on vacation, but you've seen some high-profile guys, most notably Bruce Arians, who's got all this cachet. Is a 2-time Coach of the Year, Super Bowl winner now. Reigning Super Bowl champions. He comes down to, you want to get back to normal, take the vaccine. That's how he handled it. What is the difference between having a coach like that and having a rookie coach like we have here in Philadelphia, Nick Sirianni, who maybe has to be a little bit more political, trying to get everybody up to speed?
No doubt. There's no doubt about it. Bruce is a guy that is a no-nonsense guy. He doesn't hold anything back. I mean, I remember him at Temple as a young coach in his early to mid-30s. He's very out there. I've been around Bruce privately. One of the things I respect about him is he doesn't hold anything back. Now, I know what both of you guys are alluding to with your points on this. No team will cut a starting player, okay? I know they're not supposed to anyway. You can't do that. But wink, wink, nod, nod. It comes down to the 53rd guy versus 52 or 53 versus 40, and it's COVID versus non-COVID. I think that could factor into it, whether they got the shot or not. Again, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but John, you've covered this league longer than most people. You know how coaches handle situations. I want to leave Bruce Arians out of this for a second. These things do matter, whether you believe it or not. And Jody wanted to take a deep dive into this stuff. It absolutely will matter. Teams will poo-poo it, downplay it, but teams have done this forever, for decades, and then somehow magically some of these players that you thought might make it don't. But again, they're not cutting, starting, or key backup players. We'll see what happens, and not everyone's going to do it. That's their own personal choice. And I know there were some coaches that I was speaking to that had not gotten it as of the draft time, but I'm sure they'll do it by training camp because it's just so much harder. And the other thing for coaches is it's even harder because you got to do Zoom. You got to do Microsoft Teams to have meetings. Yeah. If you're not vaccinated, it's a pain in the butt elsewhere.
It's going to be a huge story, but right before and then once camp's open. All right, Adam, last one. And I know it's a guy that you have expressed opinions on for years because he deserves it. Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
He didn't make the playoffs last year. That Brady guy did okay in the playoffs, as in got to throw the Super Bowl trophy off a boat. I'd say he had a pretty good year. Belichick, not so much. They've been very aggressive during this offseason, signing free agents, doing things differently than they've ever done before in New England. If it doesn't work, and Belichick has another non-successful season, Bills are the team to beat in the division. I think both the Jets and the Dolphins will be better than they were last year. So the pressure's kind of on the Patriots this year. How's Belichick going to handle that?
You know, it all comes to, well, first of all, within that, it's his decision. Let's go back to quarterback list with Cam Newton not to play Jarrett Stidham, who was the fourth rounder in 2019. He could have, once they were eliminated from the playoffs, the final two games, he decided to play Cam Newton. Newton should have been benched. He was terrible. After a really great start at Seattle, it was an incredible game. I think it was week one. Then it was steadily downhill. I think he wants to prove people right with Newton. But we know, listen, unless he plays above average football, and as you said, they spent a lot of money. They're paying more tight end money than any team has ever done in free agency at the tight end position. I've never seen anything like it. 2 tight ends. We know they're going to be a 12-personnel team. But they spent a first-round pick on Mac Jones. So he's a future quarterback. I think Bill, to answer your question, Jody, is the spotlight will be on him for all the decisions. It's all the free agent money. They went all in. And by the way, last year, agents were telling me they weren't spending any money because they didn't have it. And they were not going to do restructures. They were just going to have a year where they weren't spending any money in free agency, and they're putting it all till next year, which is this year. And they did that. And now look, going forward here, I mean, it's not like Belichick's job will ever be in jeopardy, but the criticism will just grow louder. If Cam Newton doesn't play well and gets benched early, and some of these players, Nelson Aguilar, paying him pretty good money. Not surprising, he had a good year despite the drops. He had actually a pretty good year. They spent a lot of money. I think the criticism, to answer your question, Jody, will grow louder. If they're not a playoff team, they should be. The Bills are better, but the Patriots now, with all that they spent, they have a very talented team. Some guys come back from the COVID opt-out. They're going to be a wild card team unless their quarterback plays so bad. They're definitely going to be a wild card team.
It'll be very interesting to see because Bill Belichick doesn't handle critique and criticism real well, and he could be looking at some of it this year. Adam, we always appreciate it whenever you come on Inside the Birds podcast. New one dropping tomorrow, as he noted. We appreciate whenever you come on with us, buddy. You know we'll be calling you again to punch your smiling face up.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Adam Caplan here with us on Birds 365. All right, we got a couple minutes left. Take a quickie timeout. Come back. John and I will rejoin you right here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.